If you grew up in the 2000s watching college football, you know that the most important three letters in the entire sport were BCS. Unless you're an LSU fan, then you might have a different opinion. If you're too young to know what BCS is, it stands for Bowl Championship Series. And back in the day, instead of a 4 or 12 team playoff, the teams that played for the national championship were decided by a series of rankings averaged together to choose the best or most deserving two teams in the nation. Only sometimes they didn't. Sure, the BCS era gave us a handful of undisputable classics like Vince Young in Texas slaying the USC Trojans in 06, or Jameis Winston in Florida State beating Auburn in a thriller in the final BCS championship game in 2014. But among college football fans, the overwhelming consensus was that oftentimes either the best or most deserving teams didn't always make it. One of the best examples of this is the 2000 Miami Hurricanes, who were left out of the BCS National Championship for a Florida State team that they beat earlier in the season. Miami had a bad early season loss to a good Washington team and then rattled off 10 straight wins despite the head-to-head victory. The Hurricanes would have to wait a year to get their chance. Similarly, in 2011, many college football fans felt that a number 3 Oklahoma State team led by Brandon Weeden and Justin Blackman deserved a shot at undefeated SEC champion LSU, despite their double overtime road loss to a 6-7 Iowa State team. But instead, we got a rematch of LSU and Alabama in which the Crimson Tide routed the Tigers 21-0. And some people might say, yes, Alabama did win the national championship, so the best team got in, so what's the problem? The problem is you have a team that did not win their conference championship, much less their own division. And yes, their one loss was to the number 1 team in the country, but I like to think that this moment in time was the point at which the SEC bias we've seen run rampant for the last decade or more in college football became undeniable. Because if we're going to play the, well, they should have just beat Iowa State card, then maybe Alabama should have beaten LSU the first time. Doing a comparison of the team's two schedules, each team handily beat unranked conference opponents, beat ranked conference opponents by at least one score, but the one game that stands out is the infamous shit through a tin horn game against my own alma mater, Georgia Southern. Yes, this is a real Nick Saban quote and a real t-shirt that I own.
You all don't remember the Georgia Southern game, do you? And they run through our like through a tin horn, man, and we could not stop them. Could not stop them. Could not stop them. I don't even know what you asked me, but I just wanted to say that. Could not stop them.
Now, Georgia Southern was a FCS powerhouse at the time. They even beat Florida in the swamp just a few years later without even throwing a pass. But if you're going to make the case that you deserve to play for the national championship, you should probably have more than a 10-point lead against the FCS team for most of the game. But I digress. The point of this video isn't to discredit the SEC because Tennessee already did that this year. The point of this video is to determine who would be the BCS champion in the year 2024 if that was still the method that the NCAA used. Now, I personally don't know how to average numbers together to form an accurate BCS ranking, but luckily there is a Twitter page called BCS Know-How that has taken the liberty of keeping up with what it would look like if we still used BCS rankings today. This is not an ad. This is not sponsored. They don't know I exist. But shout out to them for doing the Lord's work so I can make this video. According to their final BCS rankings, Oregon and Georgia are the 1 and the 2. So let's throw them in the game and see what happens. Now, I got to give you a disclaimer. I actually filmed this before the SEC championship game, so Georgia does have Carson Beck. So that's why the action starts with the worst quarterback I have ever seen in a UGA uniform finding Oscar Delp for a first down. Later in the drive, the Dogs face 3rd and 8, and Dylan Bell beats everyone to get behind the defense and give Georgia a 7-0 lead early. Oregon faces 3rd and 9 on their first drive, and Dylan Gabriel finds a man to just barely get the first down. The Ducks face 3rd down again, and this time the pressure gets to Dylan Gabriel, and that'll put the ball back in Georgia's hand. On a 2nd and 8, Carson Beck has 37 business years to throw this ball, and eventually he slings it downfield to find Dominic Lovett, who appears to run 20 yards back to the ball. Classic Carson Beck. Classic Mike Bobo. On another 2nd and 8, my man has hands made of cast iron skillets because what was that drop? And on the very next play, Carson Beck drops back, and this time the Oregon defense is the one coming up with a big sack. On 3rd and 4, Dylan Gabriel doesn't have much going on. He throws it away and Oregon goes 3 and out. On their first play back with the ball, Georgia takes a deep shot to Dominic Lovett, but it falls incomplete. And on 3rd and 3 later in the drive, the Dogs would fail to convert. Oregon's Jordan James will give the Ducks their first explosive play of the game as he takes this one 36 yards, and that'll take us to the end of the first quarter where Georgia leads 7-0. Oregon would have a scare to start the second quarter as Evan Stewart catches this one and fumbles, but they are able to recover. And on the next play, Gabriel goes right back to Stewart to put Oregon on the board. Beautiful comeback route and great execution here by the Ducks. Faced with 3rd and 2 on their next drive, Georgia looks to Trevor Etienne, but Oregon's D-line stands tall and gets the Dogs off the field. Dillon Gabriel finds Terrence Ferguson over the middle, and it looks like the Ducks are putting together a nice drive until 2 plays later, Smile Munden Jr. comes through absolutely unhinged for the sack. Oregon faces 3rd and 16, and Dillon Gabriel finds Evan Stewart streaking towards the end zone. The Ducks go up by 1 score, still pretty early in the second. On their next drive, Georgia converts on not 1, but 2 3rd and inches to keep driving, but on 3rd and 9, Beck looks for Oscar Delp and almost gets picked off. A little bit more stick 'em on the gloves, and that's going the other way for 6. Oregon gets the ball back, and after a devastating sack by Michael Williams, Dillon Gabriel recovers and finds Terrence Ferguson again to convert on 3rd and 5. Inside 2 minutes, Gabriel goes back to the well and hits Ferguson, this time for the touchdown, and Oregon looks to take a commanding 14-point lead into halftime. Carson Beck looks deep to Dominic Lovett once again, and once again the ball hits the turf, but the 3rd time will be the charm, as this time Lovett torches the entire Ducks defense, and the Dogs aren't done yet. But Oregon isn't done yet either. Evan Stewart takes this one deep into Georgia territory. They call a timeout, the Duck dances, but they're able to tack on the field goal, and that'll take us to the half, 24-14 Oregon. Oregon gets the ball to start the second half, and they start by putting together a nice drive until Michael Williams gets his 2nd sack of the day, and 2 plays later he gets another sack to stall out Oregon's drive. It's 3rd and 5 for Georgia, and Carson Beck only knows how to throw the deep ball in this game, and he finds Arian Smith to put them right back in it. He beats the corner deep, and I hate to say it, but Mike Bobo seems like he might be cooking. But I'll tell you who's not cooking: Georgia's defense. Dillon Gabriel eats a vicious hit and finds Evan Stewart, who cooks Georgia's defense for at least the 3rd time today. 3rd and 7 on their next drive, Georgia's Dylan Bell catches it right at the marker but ends up just short, setting up 4th and inches, and despite the real-life fake punt in the SEC Championship, Georgia chooses to punt here. 3rd and 4 for Oregon, and it's not just Evan Stewart who can burn Georgia, as Dillon Gabriel finds Tez Johnson to put them ahead by 17, and it's not looking good for Georgia. 3rd and 12, back against the wall, Carson Beck finds Oscar Delp to keep their hopes alive and get into Oregon territory, and that'll bring us to the end of the 3rd quarter. Later in the drive, this drop by Dominic Lovett sets up a field goal, but Oregon gets called for roughing the kicker, and Carson Beck will find Arian Smith in the end zone again. And over on defense, Chaz Chambliss put some life into the Georgia defense with this monster sack on Dillon Gabriel. But that wouldn't keep him down for long, as the Oregon quarterback would fire back with an 88-yard touchdown pass to his tight end Terrence Ferguson on the very next play, and this Oregon offense is absolutely unstoppable. Georgia would make their way down the field with little to no time management, and for some reason Mike Bobo decided running the ball on 3rd and 5 when you're down by 3 scores was a good idea. And on 4th and 3, Carson Beck decides taking a sack is better than doing literally anything else to pretty much seal the game for Oregon. Georgia would get the ball back and score a touchdown to make it 45-35, and in the most Carson Beck thing ever, on the final play of the game, he takes a safety to make the final score 47-35. And there you have it, 2024 National Championship under BCS rules, and the video game has decided that the Oregon Ducks would be your national champions. At the time of recording this, they just got destroyed by Ohio State last night, so not looking too good for Oregon. Obviously, they can't replicate this in real life, so maybe the BCS would have helped them. Maybe this would have gave them an easier path to the championship. I mean, obviously it would have, because they would have only had to beat Georgia without Carson Beck in real life, which honestly, if Carson Beck did start against Oregon as the Georgia quarterback, that'd probably seal the deal for Oregon. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of the playoffs plays out. I mean, I'm obviously happy with it. I've been in favor of a 12-team playoff since UCF thought they were national champions. And I don't mind the first round blowouts. I think, that's going to happen no matter what you do, because it even happened with the 4-team playoff. But either way, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.